At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
It is a new day for 911 professionals. They have gone from the most important person you will never see to the most vital piece of public safety. Truth be told, they always have been. The curtain has been pulled back, and they are sharing their stories. Welcome to Imagine Listening. Your Worst Day is Our Everyday by Ricardo Martinez II, and narrated by myself, Ricardo Martinez II, and distributed by Beacon Audio Books. Copyright 2023. That's right, everyone. Finally, I can let everyone know the rumors are true. Imagine Listening, Your Worst Day is Our Everyday is now available as an audiobook on Audible, and it's a long time coming. Very excited. Not a lot of authors get the opportunity to voice their own book, but I had the honor and privilege to do so. So thank you to Beacon Audio Books, as well as my publisher, Titled Town Publishing, for everything, but especially all of you for making the I Am 911 movement, as well as Imagine Listening, what it is today. I appreciate you all more than you know. So go ahead, head out, stream it, download it, however you consume your audiobooks. Imagine Listening is now available. Replacements are everywhere in life. When one of our tires blows, we use a replacement in the trunk. When our shoes get worn out and the soles fade away, we buy new ones. When our apartment is too small for a growing family, we buy a house. One thing that can be replaced is telecommunicators, but they can be helped. That's why Prepared built Prepared Assist, powered by AI, to help telecommunicators process calls faster and more accurately. Call audio is processed for transcription, translation, and automated insights, pulling key details from what the caller has said so that the telecommunicator simply has to two-click copy and paste to CAD. See why directors and frontline telecommunicators alike are calling it a game changer by visiting prepared911.com/assist. If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast, whether you are on Patreon, Circle, or Facebook. Thank you so very much, but also all of you who are here watching, listening, supporting, and sharing. I appreciate you. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, so thank you so very much. There's a lot of stuff going on, as always, and just make sure to check everything out on social media. Go to the link that's right there, but of course, for all of you who are listening on through audio, you can go to links with 2 eyes That's linkswith2i's.co/WTT podcast. And you can follow all the social media and everything there and stay up to date on where I'm going to be, whether it be for classes, conferences, or simply to check out the powerful stories coming out from 911 professionals from all over the world. Thank you for all of that. And we're going to jump right in here with my guest. This has been a long time coming, and I am super excited. We were just talking a little bit before we started recording and already laughing and having fun. So this is going to be good. My guest today is Lauren, and she is a retired 911 professional and life stylist entrepreneur. Good morning.
Good morning. You got me laughing again. My favorite part about this podcast.
Hell yeah, man. This is going to be good. We're going to learn a lot about you and what it is that you're doing now and all, but let's jump right in. So how did you get involved in public safety to begin with? Because you have before we started recording, you had mentioned you've got about 9 years total in public safety and a portion of that in dispatch. So how did you get involved with public safety to begin with?
So fun fact, I didn't start in dispatch until 2015.
Mm-hmm.
And it was 2013 when I actually applied for Cobb County 911 in Georgia, which at the time, and it probably still is, love Melissa dearly, but it was the second hardest test to take for dispatch in the state of Georgia. And I missed one question that stopped me from starting in 2013, or I would have been in for a lot longer. And so 2015 came around and I was working for Cherokee County Rec and Park,
Mm-hmm.
and their 911 director walked in at the time, and love her, we're still friends. And she had mentioned something, and I was like, let's try it one more time. Let's just see. And I ended up getting it, and it was a roller coaster ride from that moment on. And so I started in dispatch. I didn't start anywhere else when it came to public safety. So that's what makes me a little bit on the different side. So
How did that feel? Like, well, let's look at both. Let's look at both pieces. When you missed that one question, which is crazy to think it was just the one, and you end up kind of going the other direction, right? But then going back into it. But how did that kind of feel? And then how did it feel when you passed it and you're like, damn, I'm in. Here we are.
So 2013, I was a newly single parent to a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was looking for anything that could give me, as crazy as it is, a 911 dispatch schedule or public safety in general, to an extent, the hours work better with parenting, depending on what stage of life your child is at. So in 2013, that was it was one of those like, am I ever going to do anything other than all that I've ever done? And I have been working since I was 14. So here I am at 26 years old with a toddler trying to figure out life. And it took a couple of years, but I listened to the universe, and when she walked in, we were talking about it. I'm like, okay, this might be the chance, because with Cobb, I wouldn't have been able to take the test for another 6 months to a year to do it again. So I missed 3 questions in total, and you can only miss 2. And it was a Scantron test. So let me tell you that.
Yeah.
there is not. So fast forward 2 years, and I'm taking a portion of it was a written test, and then of course the CAD test itself. And passed that just fine. So it was a weird moment in my life to feel like a failure, and then not but 2 years later feel like a success. So it was quick.
It's awesome though with anything that people do, and I try to tell folks this a lot, that it's okay to fail, because that's how we learn. If you don't ever fail, what are you learning, right? And I've told my kids this as well. We would watch UFC fights or boxing or whatever, and I would say that person has never lost, and they're like, that must mean like they're the greatest. And I would say, yeah, maybe in a way, a lot of people have a different way to think of that. However, for me, I look at those that are the GOAT, where they have failed many, many times and have learned from that and have come back. And it's for me, it's that comeback story. And I feel like for you as well, you had that moment where you had that failure, but there was something inside you where you wanted to try it one more time. And also on top of that, I kind of feel like even just talking to you this little bit here, um, you did not want to have the what if or the
Mm,
regret, because man, that can eat at you, and you ended up going back and bam, you ended up getting it and you felt that success.
I did. I was there for 5.5 years. It was with zero support system where I live. All of my family lives in other states. And even now to this day, one of my closest, bestest friends is because we started together. And she actually left a year and 1 day after I did. Um, like that's how parallel our lives are. And she's a month older than me, and we've got our boys are best friends. So dispatch gave me a support system and a family, a found family. And had I not taken that chance and leaving insurance and trying one more time, um, I'm I don't know where I would be right now. Everything happens for a reason, and the one failure may have been because of everything that happened that I look back and I'm like, I'm kind of glad I wasn't working there at that time.
Mhm.
Um, but it allowed me to kind of find my place in my home, and my son has grown up in this county and is well immersed in this county and has such a strong support around him. And had I not taken that chance, and I tell people all the time, just take the leap, see where you land. You
Right.
never know.
Yeah, it's very true. It takes that one step, and it's a scary step, right? It's a scary one to be able to do it, and but once you do, no matter what happens, I mean, I always feel like it's worth it because you don't want that regret, and
Mhm.
it's a hard thing. So, you end up making it, and now you're gonna start training and all. What was the training like for you? And for those who don't know, like this center is a pretty big center. Like I've been there, I've walked through it. There are tons of people working at one time. And it's completely a completely different beast for someone like myself who started in a one seat small police department, then transferred and moved back to Southwest Michigan, and I ended up finishing off my career at a central dispatch within the county that I grew up in. And now there's 3 to 4 of us on the floor, which does not compare to that county because there's way more people. So, you're
Yeah.
getting into this. What was that training like for you?
Um, so our training class at the time was the second largest that Cherokee had hired, and there were six of us. I have since walked in because NTW, I still strongly support our dispatch center. And quick shout out to Cherokee County. They actually just got awarded State of Georgia's 911 Center of the Year. So
Oh,
I'm
very nice.
super proud of them. Um, and they truly are. The training is um one for the books. So you have nine people on shift. That's a full shift.
Mhm.
Um, and anything less than that, and you're like, boy, I really don't want to combine these radios tonight. But it happens. And the goal for them is 13 people, and having call takers kind of alleviate from the dispatchers. But you go through 9 months to a year of training. I think they're at 8 weeks of academic now. I left in 2020.
Mhm.
Um, and they were going between 6 to 8 weeks of academic training. So you have in the room stuff. You sit down, you kind of observe, and then when you graduate out of the academic phase, you go into the room. You're assigned, day or night shift. You're assigned a CTO at the time, and you start on one radio and you keep going until you get signed off on that radio. And for our county, we have 3 cities. And technically, we have 4, but the 4th one is on one of the sheriff's office radios as well, just because it's a smaller area.
Mhm.
And then, so you have 3 of the sheriff's office, which also includes the marshal's office and animal control. And then you have fire and EMS, which is all one radio, can be split into 2. So you have a radio every time that you have to sign off on. My first one was actually the city that I live in and still has some of my closest friends from. Some of my most chaotic calls came from this radio. I'm pretty sure it's because I started training on it, and that's why it became that radio. Where I'm like, no, someone's always dead at 7:05 in the morning. Like I can't even plug up. Like
Right.
this is how we start.
It's a weird thing.
So yeah, so I went 10 months, and during that process, you go to post, you do EMD, you do CPR. And for our center, we are both dispatchers and call takers. So there's when we talk about splitting your brain in half or into thirds, because you also have to hear the room, my son gets mad even now. And this is, I don't even know how many years later at this point, and I still can hear something that's happening up there, have a conversation on the phone with you here, and know that the dishwasher's about to explode. And he's like, I don't understand how you can hear everything.
That is something that I try to tell people all the time. I call it dispatch ear. And they're like, I don't know what you mean. And I'll say, well, and then I'll start explaining, like, one ear is listening to the room, the other ear is listening to the entire environment within the phone call. And it's I recently wrote about it, and the way I explained it there is, picture a cinematic moment in a movie, and it's zooming in on certain pieces that are in slow motion. And for us, it's almost exactly that way, where we can zoom in on each noise, each sound, everything that's going on, and we're picking at it, and we're just typing, 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 typing. And after I wrote it, I was like, yeah, that pretty much sounds right, because
Yeah.
you are, it's like a slow motion moment. And the reason I say that as well is because, for those who have never taken an emergency call through someone's literal nightmare, um, you're listening to every single thing, almost as if it's slow motion in a way, because a call, and I know you've experienced this as well. Some of these calls feel like they're 10 or 15 minutes, but they're only like 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whichever. But that's what it is, because you're so in tune with everything that is going on. And then when you're done, you think, damn, that was a long call. And you look at the time, like, oh, I guess not.
Yeah, because you're looking at it being like, did I get that sent in 30 seconds or less? Like, because
Right.
I feel like it took me 7 minutes just to get the address.
Yeah.
Definitely have had a lot of those moments over the years. But training for me, that one went a little different. It was not what a lot of people expected, how it happened. But either way, I got through it. And during my training, I ended up having to sit with another CTO. And to this day, she and I are still friends. We're actually birthday twins. And she was sitting further away from me, and I don't know how the call came about. I think it was called in to somebody else by GSP, so our state troopers here in Georgia. And they were coming into our county, high speed chase, Camaro with a passenger and a driver. Not only, and I'm going to toot my own horn because I'm really proud of it. And it is something that we all still kind of bring up and talk about because of some of the things that came up in my training notes.
Mhm.
But I handled that shit like a boss.
Hell yeah.
Like once we finished it, let me tell you, by the end of this chase, not only did every agency that needed to be involved. Not only was there clear, concise, I mean, notes, like hit that M/ button, and everybody that had a CAD going for this call had notes in it from everything that he was telling me. The guy ended up pushing the girl out of the car at 60 miles an hour on an off ramp. Okay. While driving this vehicle, throws baggies out about 4 miles north. Sheriff's office is behind him. GSP at this point, and I happen to know him because he gave me a ticket that same morning.
Weird how the universe works.
And he looked at me when he came back and he was like, "Why didn't you tell me you were?" I was like, "Sir, I'm trying to go to training. You put me through hell last night. Like, give me my $200 ticket and get out of here." Damn it. Like, you're welcome. Congratulations on yanking a dude out by his collar, like horse collaring the hell out of him from a flipped vehicle in a ditch. Proud of you. You get to go home. Can you leave me alone?
Wow.
So yeah, with that call was one of my favorite calls because once it was all said and done, and GSP literally, I mean, reached his hand into this car, it was upside down, and pulled this man out of that vehicle, like just gorilla grabbing a snake, just whoop, whoop. The entire room was electric. This was 11 midnight, something like that, like in our sleepy little town. So everybody's dead asleep at 8:47 in the evening anyways. But like the whole room, everybody was cheering and happy. And the trainer, like, she looked at me and she was like, "I have no idea why you have not been signed off by yourself yet." It was like, to each their own. Everybody has their own opinions. But, I learned a lot through that process. And had I not still been in training, I may not have taken that call. And it was one of those that made me feel like this is exactly what I am supposed to be doing.
I love that. And I'm glad that you are tooting your own horn because I don't think we do that enough. I don't think we celebrate our wins enough. And I think sometimes people feel like, oh, I'm just, look at me, pick me, or whatever. But that's not what it is because this is a thankless job, man. And there's not a lot of times that you get thanked. And of course, we're not looking for a thanks or a kudos or whatever either, but it is awesome to have that recognition every so often and to be able to celebrate those wins are good. And I tell people all the time, if you don't journal now, you should start. And the reason I say that is because write down those wins, because when you're having one of those hard ass days where you're starting to question certain things, look back at those wins and
Mhm.
remember, because that is your why, that is your reason. And I just, you gave me goosebumps as you were talking about it because I can feel the energy, the vibe from you. And I've had those moments as well in dispatch where you go through some crazy ass call that's going on and you all end up standing up and we're like, we just did that shit, like we handled that, and bam, bring on the next one, and you and
Mhm.
you keep going. It's what helps you continue to do what you're doing. But again, it's the reason why you're there to begin with.
So, uh, to kind of capitalize on that, I struggled. Um, 20, it was during training.
Mhm.
Um, a lot happened while I was in training. Now that I'm thinking about this stuff, over here racking my brain. So while I was in training, trainees, because we're attached with CTOs, they usually kind of get the short end of the stick, but it also allows you to kind of get away because you are still learning how to process and manage and compartmentalize and do all of the things that are not mentally healthy for you to do as a human, but is a necessity when it comes to being a 911 dispatcher.
Right.
Um, so you're able to go and pick up dinner. So if, we're ordering from Longhorns or, wherever. In this case, it was actually Longhorns we ordered from. And it was just one of those nights where it was like, I'll just go get it. Like, I need to have my music in my car anyway. And, I was going through a really tough time personally at that moment. And I get to Longhorn and I'm picking up our order. And on my way to Longhorn, I remember, and I don't do this often. The line from Jelly Roll's song is what I'm gonna repeat, where it's I only talk to God when I don't have a prayer. Okay. So that was me that night. And I was like, God, just tell me, like, now, is this supposed to be like, give me something? And I'm really big into signs. Like, if there's butterflies around, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that's my grandmother. So at the time, it was like, just give me something, whatever it is. Tell me if this is where I need to stay, because I was really struggling with quitting at that point. I had lost a 5-year-old, was one of my very first phone calls. Met his parents recently at the 5K run that they hold every year. And I apologized, and she was like, do not carry this with you. I know his first and last name and everything else. So I was struggling at that
Mhm.
point. Like, what could I've done differently? Looking at timestamps, like, I didn't understand, like, and there's a lot behind it. So when I get to Longhorn, I let them know, like, I'm there for the 911 pickup, and the bartender said, "Can you hold on just a moment for me?" And I knew her, and I was like, "Sure." Yeah, I didn't know what she wanted. Um, and the general manager comes out, and she was like, "So I don't know if it was you or somebody else, but about 4 weeks ago, I had to call into 911, and I had just moved here. I didn't even know my address. Um, and whoever I talked to made me forget about the pain in my chest, to the point that we were talking about my cat. And I just looked at her, and my jaw just was like, I said, "Is your cat orange, and do you live in this neighborhood?" And she looked at me and she was like, "It was you." I'm gonna get tears thinking about it. Um, because if y'all don't know if the universe or God works in mysterious ways, let me tell you, that night he did. Um, this woman ended up moving down here to manage the Longhorn 2 weeks prior to her phone call. And I remember sitting on one of our city radios, and my trainer was sitting away. I was getting ready to be signed off. And he was like, just walk her through it. And she was having a heart attack, a massive heart attack, alone, no support, no family, doesn't know anybody other than, two people at work, and has a cat. I was like, mail. She was like, I haven't gotten any, like, really anything here. And I was like, it doesn't matter if it's for you or not. I just need the address. And this is in the process when Verizon was still trying to figure out the weight, the phasing stuff. So we were
Mhm.
still like hundreds of feet from where a phone call could be at, but it wasn't enough to narrow down in this neighborhood, like what of the 5 houses she would be at. Um, so she was able to do that. And when the pain started getting hard, I started asking her, like, what about pets? Like, where did you used to live? And we started talking about her cat. Because we had a cat at the time, and so we would just talk about that until fire arrived, and she ended up having to have an emergency quadruple bypass 24 hours later to save her life. And she, like, there wasn't a dry eye in that bar area. There was like 7 other people, and she gave me the biggest hug. I can feel it right now. Um, and I needed that. I needed that so much. This job is so hard. Um, and I wasn't even a full year in at that point. And I went back, and I was blessed enough. They don't have as many veterans now, because obviously we know there's a lifespan. But I was blessed when I came in that I had people that were 13 and 15 years in. And they're some of the biggest mentors and people that I will look at in such a loving light, and pray for them every day. Um, but one of them looked at me, and she was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I just had the most surreal experience of my life." And I told my trainer that. He was like, "I don't think anybody's ever met the person that they saved." And she turns around and she looks at me and she was like, "I've worked here for 13 and a half years. And I know of many saves that I have and many births, but I have never met a single person I've ever saved the life of. She was like, don't question if you're supposed to be here. And I didn't question it until I questioned it again later on, you know. But that is a moment for me because 6 months later, I met somebody else that his neighbor found him laid out in his driveway while he was trying to cut his lawn, and he had had a massive heart attack. Um, and I ended up meeting him getting coffee for the center, like just because I was wearing a 911 shirt, like in a completely different area. So I have met two people that I have had the pleasure of saving their life out of the 5 CPR saves out of 5 years. And there's not a lot of dispatchers that can say that.
So I'm completely goosebumps everywhere, and amazing work, but also thinking about it, um, there's not a lot of times that calls like that come full circle, and you were simply throwing it out there in the universe for some sort of sign, and there you have it.
Not a bigger one can tell you where you're supposed to be than that one.
Oh my god, yeah, exactly, right, and it just by chance that you were the one to run that errand and pick up everyone's food, and there's that person. I can't even I'm picturing it as you are talking about it, and I can see the both of you face to face, and I can feel it from you, but also I can't imagine how shocking that had to be, but then also afterwards, after having that conversation and going to your vehicle and probably sitting there for a moment thinking, "What the F just happened right now?"
Yeah, full tears, like the whole ugly cry. We won't do that today because that is like really ugly and there's mascara. But so it was night shift then, so I could get away with like, no makeup kind of deal. But yeah, like just sat there and was like, okay, I know I asked for a sign, but dear God, like, could you have made it any bigger, sir? And had I left at that point again, so I don't know that I would be where I'm at now. And I remember, I know the neighborhood. I remember, the cat. There's so much. I remember where she was sitting in her house, like the whole 9 yards. So that's one of the ones that had a really good outcome. And for her to be up walking and back managing, a month later,
Right.
like that also shows her resiliency as well. So
I think that's one of the things that people don't always understand is the fact that we're there and we're taking these calls, and I hear it. I've heard it in the past a lot, not so much now, but in the past I've heard it where you guys are just answering the phone and sending help, but it can't impact you that much. And I would just kind of stand there staring at them with the slow blink,
mhm.
and then in my head as I'm slow blinking, thinking, okay, how do I say this without being a dick? you know
You can't. You
Right.
can't. You have to
It's
just say
right.
it.
And I would say, listen, you really don't understand that I might sound calm, cool, and collected because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing and getting help out there as fast as possible. However, in the back of my mind, I'm freaking out with you
Yeah.
because as an empath that we all are, we put ourselves in your shoes and we are going through this with you from beginning to the time that we hang up. And even after that, we could be sitting there waiting to hear something over the radio to
Mhm.
hopefully hear some sort of good outcome. Or sometimes we won't hear anything at all and we're left wondering what happened. And those
Yeah.
moments stick with us, no matter if it's a good outcome, a bad outcome, they stick with us. And like you're saying right now, I mean, you remember everything, to the detail of the cat, even, there's all of
It was
these
an
things.
orange tabby cat.
There you go. There you go. freaking Garfield right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I called him.
And that's why, conversations like this are so important so that people do understand, and they get kind of a handle on what it is like for us on that other side, but also others that are out there in the field responders, to understand, so that we can bridge that gap between us and we can all learn from each other. But that's what's also important about these calls and being able to share them, because it's therapeutic as well. And damn, I was not expecting these stories that you're giving me. Like, for those watching and listening, I don't, whenever we do this, I don't ask all the time for, like, I will say to people, if there are certain stories that you want to share, to make sure that I bring up, please let me know, so that I can put it out there. But I don't ever ask for, like, the whole thing, because I want to hear these for that first time, just like the audience is listening to it as well. And the universe, God, everything just works in a such a
Yeah, so
such a
if
way,
you
man.
need a sign, if you need a sign to ask and place your, so I say it the same way, and it's kind of funny because a mentor of mine told me this is the same way that you would tell a server, so Longhorns, the same way that I would tell Longhorns what my order is in order for it to process in the kitchen to be able to be given to me, is the same way that you need to treat the universe around you. Place your order with the universe, let it cook in the kitchen, and come back. And in my case, it just so happened to literally be a kitchen. So there it
It
was.
worked
And
out.
why I struggled for so many years after that to really understand how the universe worked when that was the thing for me.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think I let life and the stress of the job and the imbalance balance act kind of take over, and I would have to intentionally remind myself of those moments, um, because I there were many a times where it was like, I'm just gonna throw my headset out the window and call it a day, you know.
Right.
um, and when I started, it's when a lot of movements started happening in the nation, and oh boy, man, if you do not work 911 when things happen in another state, don't think for a second there aren't people out there that won't call your center and cuss you out for something that happened 700 miles away
Oh,
because
for
it
sure.
happened.
Right.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I have nothing to do with that. Like, I don't even know where that is in that state. Like, I couldn't even tell you. So those are things that I'm just like, man, this is the stuff that makes you want to quit these jobs because you're just like, I do not feel like taking on somebody else's stupidity.
That's for sure. Yeah, a lot of that happens. And, I feel like these moments that you just shared, it fits to, as, kind of segueing into what it is that you do now. And so
Mhm.
you go through all this time, you've experienced these things that not a lot of people do. You've gotten these signs, and I'm a firm believer that there's a lot that we have in our own life experience that helps us, whether it be when we're taking calls or whatever we do in the next stage of our lives. And you ended up retiring out of dispatch, and you are have segued into what it is that you're doing now. So please tell me what it is that you do now.
So I left dispatch and I remained post certified, and I worked for the, the city radio that I would set on fire every time. I ended up working for that city's police department for about 3.5 years, and did what I needed to do, which my whole purpose was to train somebody else underneath me. So when I left dispatch, I had been a CTO. I was their public education outreach team. I have been featured in the 911 Training Institute magazine, from by a article with Ryan. So like I did a lot. Like we went from 7 events to 21 events in the first year that I had the education team at 911. Like, and that's where my heart was at. Like, let
Mhm.
me teach people about this because you don't realize how much 911 without them how do you expect anything to be handled on the road? So don't forget the first responder. And so that helped me be able to work at the PD and deal with people face to face at that point. And yes, walk-ins happen that you just stand there and you're like, what did you just tell me? Um, and from there, I was able to train somebody up, and that was literally my goal. Being comfortable enough to quit this job and do something else, leave public safety, give my brain the time that it needs. And I did that and successfully. And I told that person, I was like, you've got this. I was like, I have no doubt in my mind that you will be the supervisor when I leave. And they are. And they will be there for life, which is great. That's their lifelong thing. But for me, I journaled in 2021, 2022. What year are we in? What year are we in, Ricardo?
2024.
2024. Okay, so in 2022, I journaled that I would own my own business by the time I turned 35. So when you're journaling, you don't usually go back to it. Well, this is scripting. So in scripting, this is where you are living, how you visualize your life as is. And very rarely will you go back to it, usually the following year, just kind of skim through. So last year, March of last year, I was skimming back through it and I'm like, dang, I didn't really use all of my pages. That's really weird. I typically do one a day. Life got in the way. So February 1st of last year, I turned in my resignation to the PD and was walked out. Obviously, 2 weeks paid admin leave because of my position with warrants and everything else. I couldn't continue working there during that time period. Completely understandable. February 2nd, I had my first client with my current business, which is a lifestyling business. So I do everything from professional organizing for homes and residential to interior design styling, which is like staging for the everyday home. So not necessarily in the maximalist style, but more in the minimalist. Help people figure out their, decorations, floor space planning, all of that, things that truly I do love. And then wardrobe consulting, which is creating confident women when they leave their house in the body that they're in and what they are in. And it's funny because some of my clients are hoarders or micro hoarders. And because of all of the trauma training that I've had, and because being on the crisis intervention team and learning those different things and going to all of the different classes, I'm able to actually use everything that I learned with dispatch. And one of the first things that I say to some of my hoard clients when we are actually having a face-to-face honest conversation at our first session, I remind them, there is going to be a moment in your life you don't see coming, and who's the one that has to come in here and clean this up? If something happens in your home, how are they going to process this scene and get the justice they need for whatever has happened here? And that usually starts their wheels turning. And then we do a complete flip. So I'm able to use everything from public safety for the last 9 years in my actual job, where I'm going into these homes where people have a lot of trauma that's stored, or they are trauma bonded to items or people, and they're struggling, especially my moms and my women in my business, like to make headway of where do I change? How do I change? What's the root cause of it? And it's the training that I spent for so many years being able to afford me that opportunity to be a catch-all, and that's why it's called lifestyling, because it's literally like we're going to work through all of this together and figure out where your roots are and then fix it. And I do come with giving them a therapist's information. She's my absolute favorite. She's my therapist. She got me through all of the dispatch stuff. And she's the one that I think I have 9 clients now that see her regularly. Because I can recognize that for them. And sometimes they just need one person to come in and be like, your kid is the one that's going to have to pack this all up. Your child. And your child needs to be able to grieve. And I'm telling you, right now, when they can't grieve, it becomes a full circle, because I dealt with that. There's a nurse, she couldn't grieve the death of her son, and she started drinking. And then the next phone call months later was from her husband because she was dead. And then it cycled back, and those moments are what makes me good at what I do and why I love what I do. And I did. And in the journal, I looked back at it, and it was March of last year, and I went, holy shit, I scripted my reality. Because February 13th is my birthday. February 1st last year, I quit. February 1st, I had my business. I turned 35 February 13th of last year. So the year before, I scripted what I was going to do, and I did it without even really realizing that I did.
Damn. Full circle.
Always.
God. I love that. And it has been amazing to have you on this. I know you have to leave here pretty soon. And I just want to say that this was so worth the wait to finally have you on and to talk to you, to learn more about you, to see where you're at now, and the way that you're helping folks, that you continue to help them, and bringing all of your experience into everything that you're doing now. It's inspiring. And I have one last question for you as we go into this wrap up. With all the knowledge that you have now, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself at the beginning of your public safety career, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, Ricardo, I don't know. I don't think I would. I wouldn't go back and tell myself anything because I needed to learn everything that I learned the way that I learned it. Because if I would go back and tell myself, then I would change the course of my trajectory. And I'm on par for a six-figure income on my own. No help, ground zero, build a $40,000 business in 10 months. And I'm going to scale that 3 times over this year. I can't go back and tell myself anything because I wouldn't make the same decisions that I did in order to get me where I'm at.
That's perfect. I dig it. I dig it. Yeah. Thank you so very much for being on. This has been excellent, and I wish you well. And if you ever want to come back on, we can talk some more about just everything. It would be
Oh yeah, we can
awesome.
we can do the baby birth ones together.
Yeah. Yeah, we can do that. I can have you come on to the open mic actually, and we can talk about those stories there. That would be fun. So I'll be right back with
That's
you
my
here
favorite
in
place.
just one moment. For open mic.
Yep.
That one is a lot of fun. Okay, we're going to have to talk about that one here in just a moment. I'll be right back with you because I know you have to take off here soon. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments or questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that's going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. And you can follow us on social media. The easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to links .co/WTT podcast. And that's links with 2 I's, .co/WTT podcast. You'll find everything there: email, social media, latest episode, where to sign up to be on the podcast as well. If you're new to the profession, if you are a seasoned professional, or you are retired, I would love to have you on. I've been doing this for over a decade now, and it has been my mission to share these powerful stories out there to the world. So I would love to share your story. This live broadcast has been sponsored by In Digital, a leader Next Gen Core Services. And shout out to everyone, as always. Subscribers of the podcast, this can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, X, as well as LinkedIn Live. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And we will see you all in the next one. Replacements are everywhere in life. When one of our tires blows, we use a replacement in the trunk. When our shoes get worn out and the soles fade away, we buy new ones. When our apartment is too small for a growing family, we buy a house. One thing that can be replaced is telecommunicators, but they can be helped. That's why Prepared built Prepared Assist, powered by AI, to help telecommunicators process calls faster and more accurately. Call audio is processed for transcription, translation, and automated insights, pulling key details from what the caller has said so that the telecommunicator simply has to two-click copy and paste to CAD. See why directors and frontline telecommunicators alike are calling it a game changer by visiting prepared911.com